Chapter 2. Without warning, Pete suddenly stopped paddling and laid his paddle across the bow of our canoe. Throwing his arms open wide, he looked out across the lake toward our destination, Turtle Island. "Oh, noble island!" he called out. "Oh, island of great mystery and danger!" "Oh, brother," I thought, rolling my eyes. "Here we go again." Pete has what my mother calls a flair for the dramatic, and all morning long he'd been in top form. He even looked the part. The week before, he had rummaged around all the second-hand stores down on First Street till he'd found an old buckskin shirt with fringe across the shoulders and a bone hunting horn with a leather strap. And naturally, since this was the first day of our big adventure, he was wearing them both. "Oh, island of the deep, dark forest!" he went on. "Oh, island of—" "Oh, Pete," I broke in. "Pete, old buddy, do you think you could do a little less talking and a little more paddling?" "Land of the grizzly bear! Land of the buffalo, we are coming!" Land of the buffalo? There probably wasn't a buffalo within 1,000 miles, or a grizzly bear either, but that was Pete for you. Always hoping for the best. Always hoping for a little death-defying adventure, and just to liven things up. He gave a long blast on his hunting horn. "Forward, ho!" he said, and began paddling again. "Right!" I said, joining in. The canoe leaped forward. Actually, I have to admit I was as excited as Pete. After all those weeks of planning, we were finally on our way. It had felt great to push off from the half-sunken old pier in front of the lodge. Pete had given my parents a solemn farewell. "Do not suffer with heavy hearts," he said gravely. "When the sun has risen 1,000 more times, we shall return." "Make that a week," my father had said. "And remember, you guys had better come back alive, or you're going to be in very big trouble." Now, a quarter of an hour later, here we were, on our own, slicing through the clear blue water of Lost Lake. Pete stopped paddling again. "Hey, where do you think we ought to land?" he asked me. I shielded my eyes from the sun and peered out at the island. Pete hadn't been far wrong when he called it the island of the deep, dark forest. Practically all I could see was trees. For almost the whole length of the island, about 1.5 miles from north to south, a thick forest crowded right up to the rocky shore. There were no signs of civilization, no people, no campsites, no nothing. Pete and I had never seen Turtle Island before except on maps. But we'd picked it because we wanted a wild, untouched island, and it looked like we were going to get it. "How about that cove near the south end?" I said, pointing to a small cove with a short stretch of sandy beach. Behind it was a sunny clearing. "That looks good," said Pete. "But maybe we should give it a name first." "Okay," I said. "Got any ideas?" One of the things Pete and I planned to do during our week was to map the island and name all the features. And when it came to thinking up names, I knew I could count on Pete. He has one of those active imaginations you always hear about. "How about Cove of the Screaming Ghost?" he suggested. See what I mean? "Perfect," I said. Pete gave another blast on his hunting horn, and together we started paddling again. Now, there wasn't any excuse for what happened. I mean, all we had to do was land the silly canoe on the silly island. And we were almost there, too, gliding into the cove without a hitch, riding high. Everything seemed great. The sun was shining, the water was sparkling, and the smell of the wild flowers filled the air. Off to our left, a fish jumped. This is the life, I told myself. Then suddenly Pete stood straight up in the front of the canoe, raised his paddle, and pointed it at the island. The canoe wobbled around like crazy. "Many moons it has been," he began in a booming voice. "Down in front!" I sputtered, struggling wildly to steady the canoe. "Since we have come to these lonely shores. Behold, it is I, the mighty Pete Mackenzie, friend of the eagle, brother of the moose." He flourished his paddle in my direction, and the canoe almost went over. My paddle flipped out of my hand, whacked me on the chin, and fell overboard. "And," he went on gladly, "my loyal companion, Scott Wilson, friend of the bear, brother of the duck, hear us, O island, we greet thee." I thought about lunging to the front of the canoe and tackling him below the knees, but I never got the chance, because just then I heard some strange snortling sounds coming from somewhere on the shore. I wheeled around on my seat, and what I saw made my blood run cold. My mouth dropped open, and my stomach turned into a 2-ton ball of cement. There, half hidden behind a clump of bushes watching our every move, were 2 girls. 2 girls about our age. 2 girls who were laughing their heads off. For one awful moment, time seemed to freeze, and I took in the whole horrible scene. The tall, athletic one, with the long blonde hair and a t-shirt with a picture of a hang glider on it, was pointing at us with one hand and clutching her friend's shoulder with the other. And that was to keep from falling down, she was laughing so hard. The shorter one had her dark brown hair in a ponytail and was wearing cutoffs and a blue plaid shirt. I couldn't tell what she looked like because half her face was covered by the camera she was holding up to her eye. But under the camera, there was a huge grin on her face that seemed to say, "This has got to be the funniest pair of nincompoops I've ever seen in my life." The camera was pointed at us. "Lo!" Pete was bellowing at the top of his lungs. "We have come from across the stormy seas." I tried to keep calm. The girl obviously hadn't taken the picture yet, so I forced a sickly little smile onto my face. "Pete!" I hissed out of the corner of my mouth. "Pete!" He didn't hear me. "Watch this!" he said, and he leaped out of the canoe. He was aiming for a large, flat rock that jutted out from the shore into the deep water of the cove. I guess he figured this was his chance to make a dramatic landing. But he hadn't counted on the way the canoe shot out from under him when he pushed off, so he was a little short of the mark. His toes caught the edge of the rock all right, but he didn't have enough momentum to carry him any farther. For a few seconds he just sort of hung there, flapping his arms in big circles like a windmill trying to make headway, and then he fell backward in a perfect arc, still flapping, the fringe on his buckskin shirt flying. I wasn't ready for the splash he made. It caught the canoe broadside, and in one quick motion the canoe flipped over. Whoops of loud laughter came from shore as I was somersaulted through the air and hit the water, leading with the top of my head. The last thing I saw before I went under was my own feet, high up in the air. 2 green tennis shoes against the blue sky. "Oh, dandy," I thought to myself with disgust as I swam back up to the surface. "This is just dandy. Pete and I couldn't have done better if we had gone to clown school."